Less of an output of corn and soybeans in the US, progress in Brazil, and what's the impact of the US election on trade? Right here on Connected Farmer, your channel to keep you up to date with the latest trends in agriculture and livestock. So, Jerry, we have a lot of excitement this week, many things to talk about. So let's start with I think is what you like the most. I think is the USDA report. So they had a new report this week, and they brought more less of an output than previously thought. But you kind of anticipated that right here on the channel. So what else can you comment about the report right now?
Well, as you mentioned here, there was definitely a lot of mentality of big crops getting bigger, this kind of stuff along the way. And, let's not let's not forget this is a big crop out there. The biggest thing is, though, that some of the issues that I have been watching here, considering the soil moisture, excuse me, seed moisture that is this year's crop, didn't really bulk up as much because of the fact that we're talking 3 to 5% below the number two or number one grades for corn and soybeans. So that being said, definitely beans. Even for me, the 1.7 bushel decline was even below what I was expecting. And I was out there, just under a 1 bushel down. So nobody was looking for that. And the corn side, it was looking for about eight tenths of a bushel or 7 tenths of a bushel down to 183.1. And so the initial reaction here was bang zoom. We got a big rally in the beans. Corn came stronger in here because of the fact that both the carryover stocks on corn and beans actually were chins here at 470 million bushels. That's down 80 million from last month. Now, we had this 1.7 bushel decline in U.S. soybeans on average, and there's some interesting twists in there about yields and that along the way. But that turned out to be 120 million. Now, the interesting thing is the USDA quickly reduced down their exports by 25 million and decreased their crush by 10 or 15, I should say. So that's a total of 40 million. So that's how you can get 120 million decline in output and only take 80 million off of carryover stock. 470 is definitely going the right way on beans. And I think that's definitely a factor as we look at things here. And the potential now is, I think there's still a chance that we might get even a little closer to 150, 1.5, maybe even 51, 2 or 3 here by the time we get to the end of the numbers there in January. Corn, their numbers came through. Similar situation here with ups and downs on yields around the Midwest. And it took off 7 tenths of a bushel, and that number there of about a 61 million turned out to be what they did with carryover stock. They didn't make much adjustments there in demand, and to some extent, since they've got feed up here at last year's or near last year's level, and ethanol a strong pace. Exports right now we're ahead of the pace to make the USDA's numbers for the 2024 year, and that while beans they were slightly behind, and that's what the USDA took advantage of here to adjust their demand side on beans, but not the case in corn. But in reality, 1.94 billion bushels is still a hefty amount of corn around from there, but I think the one twist we have in front of us here is the fact that we have a short window to move a lot of export capabilities to New Orleans and things of that nature. So I think the market is still going to be kind of supportive here to get some supplies together to meet those hefty uh, recent sales that have been made here to Mexico and other places.
So we got the USDA report covered. We had the news today from the planting progress in Brazil by Patria Agronegocios, saying that nationwide the planting reached 65% approximately of the area, and about 93% in Mato Grosso. Which means that it's almost done and it's ahead of last year. So what do
Exactly
you
right.
make of it for the market? So what do you think is going to happen with soybeans in the next couple of weeks?
Well, as I said, I think the market is going to be looking at how to accumulate sales, accumulate supplies to meet the sales they have in the U.S. But at the same time, you're right about Brazil's uh, dramatic jump in plantings out there. At this point, the expectations is that the recent change in moisture scenarios across Brazil and parts of Argentina. There's still some dry spots out there in Argentina in the west, and that could end up. In general, that's usually the normal long-term pattern is once we start to get the rains in South America, they continue on. Last year was very erratic. We didn't have the rains, then we had some rains, then we didn't have some rains. I don't know. I wonder how South America's crop size is still quite important here, because the election results that we had here this previous week with Trump returning to the presidency, he has really stated his policy here that he's going to be tough on China. He's going to on and all that type of thing, increase the
Yeah,
tariffs.
so in the Brazilian uh media outlets was very discussed that the Brazilian farmer is very happy with this result, not only because they are a big fan of Bolsonaro, which is ideologically aligned with Trump, and that because with the tensions that will happen with China might benefit the Brazilian producer with higher soybean prices.
Oh, I
So
think there's definitely a mentality that this particular scenario favors South America. There's no doubt about it. If Trump's in here beating up the Chinese on one side, they're going to look in a different direction. And I don't sense that you're wrong about that. I think the key question is that that potential for demand for China is really going to have to be zeroed in on new crop. And we've got a long ways to know of what size crop size we're going to have. USDA is 169 million metric tons. They only had 153, I think it was last year. In Brazil at this point, they only thought they had 150, 148. So there's a huge difference in how much supply is going to be available. If the 169 from the USDA is right, or is it the 164 or 66 that's projected down in Brazil? And at this point, same situation a little bit in Argentina. They are going to be planting more beans down there because of the fact that this whole uh, leafhopper situation's got everybody spooked, and no doubt about it. I'm surprised that the USDA is still using 151 on both corn and soybeans for Argentina. Right now, at least we feel like we've got a million metric tons or a million hectares less than planting a new crop in Argentina. And so there's a lot of uncertainties as to how much corn is going to be produced, even in Argentina. There's lots of things flying around here. So I totally agree that the recent news down has definitely favored South America. The key question is there any more sales that can come out of South America to meet some needs? And also, uh, we're not going to end up, you know, what size of crop we're going to have down there. There's no guarantee that they're going to have a huge crop just yet. It's off to a good start in the last 3 weeks, but we're still behind the eight ball here on weather. We still don't have everything guaranteed down there that we're going to have the huge crops, and I guess we'll see what that turns out to be as we go forward.
yeah, so what price levels are you foreseeing for both corn and soybeans?
Well, I've been looking at this 430 for 40 scenario on corn. We kind of touched into it and that, and I'd still look at that. I kind of feel like that there's still a possibility of maybe pushing the December corn up into the 460, 470 range, but I definitely be pushing my sales up to 50% or more. If that occurred, just because of the fact that the U.S. is still going to have plenty of corn on hand. Even and on the soybeans, we're going the right direction at 480, but we need to get down to 350 and less before we can really put much excitement into this long-term price opportunities. Uh, the one thing that's kind of bouncing around in here is the the soybeans is the potential here for you know the the whole scenario with China and where that goes and at this point the previous administration when Trump was in there was definitely tough on the Chinese, and I think that definitely doesn't bode well on this. But the other twist of it is I'm not sure how soon that particular issue is going to be really in front of us until we get into the spring of 2025, primarily because he's comes into office in January. He's got a lot of things he's interested in doing, and things of that nature along the way. So he probably needs to talk to the Chinese leader Xi and also to Putin along the way. Get these things together before he makes any wild statements. But you never know. He doesn't. He has his ideas and approaches, and we'll see how dynamic they might or might not be. But as we go into the January period, things are going to get quite interesting as to what subject matter he decides to attack at the first time, and that was part of it will be determined by who he's going to have in his cabinet. At this point, we still have some little wild cards out there as to who's going to be handling what.
All right. Thank you very much, Jerry.
You bet. Oh, and by the way, in beans, I definitely take advantage of values that would take us up into the 1050 area, 1060 area. And that I think that's an area you definitely got to push beans up to on sales.
All right.